The night my life began to change did not arrive with fireworks or a grand announcement. It came quietly, carried on the weight of exhaustion and a sentence that settled into my chest like a stone. I had just come home from the hospital, my clothes smelling of antiseptic and long hours, when my father looked at me with tired eyes and said I needed a wife. Not as a command, not as pressure, but as a plea shaped by fear of leaving this world knowing I would be alone. And later that same night, as rain tapped softly against the windows and the house breathed in silence, she leaned close, her voice trembling with something unspoken, and repeated his words as if they were meant only for us. In that fragile moment, with the world narrowing to a single heartbeat, I realized that some lives are changed not by loud promises, but by the courage to stay. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us love can grow in the most unexpected places, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are quietly waiting to be touched. I had spent most of my adult life believing that being strong meant being alone. After my mother passed away when I was young, I became my father's shadow and his shield, growing up faster than I should have, learning to fix broken things without ever learning how to heal myself. Work became my refuge. Long shifts, extra hours, and the comforting numbness of routine filled the spaces where love might have lived. Friends drifted away, relationships never lasted, and I told myself it was easier this way. Solitude felt safe. It asked nothing from me. But safety, I would later learn, is not the same as happiness. She entered our lives without drama, without expectation. She was a distant relative of a neighbor at first, someone who came by to help after my father's health began to fail. At the start, she was simply there, cooking meals that smelled like warmth, reminding him to take his medicine, sitting quietly by his bed reading old newspapers aloud when his eyesight weakened. I noticed her kindness before I noticed her beauty. There was a gentleness in the way she moved through the house, as if she respected the silence we had built around our grief. She never tried to replace my mother's presence. She simply filled the emptiness with care. My father grew fond of her quickly, not in a romantic way, but with the gratitude of someone who had felt forgotten by the world. I watched them talk and laugh softly, and something in me shifted. For the first time in years, the house did not feel like a waiting room between past and future. It felt alive. Still, I kept my distance. I told myself she was temporary, that people like her never stayed long. People always leave, I believed. It was safer not to hope. The challenge I faced was not falling for her. That happened slowly and then all at once. The real struggle was believing I deserved anything she represented. She carried light into a place I had kept deliberately dim. Loving her meant risking loss again, and loss was a pain I had promised myself never to feel twice. Every time I caught myself noticing the way she smiled when she thought no one was watching, or the quiet strength in her eyes when my father's condition worsened, I reminded myself of my rules. No attachments. No promises. No future plans involving someone else. But life has a way of ignoring the walls we build. As my father grew weaker, the nights grew heavier. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by fear and responsibility. She stayed through it all. She never complained. Never asked for recognition. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I saw her sitting alone in the kitchen, hands folded, eyes glossy with tears she refused to let fall. In that moment, I understood something essential. She was carrying her own loneliness, her own past. Her own losses. Kindness, I realized, is often born from pain. The day my father spoke those words, his voice was frail but clear. He did not talk about marriage as tradition or obligation. He talked about companionship, about having someone to sit with during storms, someone to remind you to eat, to rest, to laugh again. He spoke as a man who had known love deeply and feared I might never experience it. His concern cracked something open inside me. I saw myself through his eyes, not as strong and self-sufficient, but as lonely. That night, when the house finally slept and the rain washed the streets clean, she approached me with hesitation written across her face. She repeated his words softly, not as pressure, but as confession. She was not asking for a promise. She was asking for permission to hope. In that moment, all my carefully constructed defenses collapsed. I realized that love does not always arrive as passion or certainty. Sometimes it comes as a quiet invitation to stay. Choosing her was not easy. The days that followed were filled with doubt, fear, and long conversations with myself. What if I failed her? What if I could not be the man she needed? What if love slipped through my fingers the way everything else had? But slowly, something changed. I began to imagine a future that did not feel like a burden. I started to see myself not just surviving, but living. As my father passed away, grief returned like an old enemy, sharp and familiar. But this time, I was not alone. She stood beside me, steady and present, sharing the weight without trying to take it away. Loss still hurt, but it did not hollow me out. In the quiet days after the funeral, when the house felt too big and too silent, she remained. She did not rush me to heal. She simply stayed, and in doing so, taught me that love is not about fixing pain, but about witnessing it. The transformation was gradual, almost invisible at first. I laughed more. Slept better. I began to talk about things I had buried for years. The fear of being abandoned slowly loosened its grip. I realized that strength was not isolation, but vulnerability. The greatest challenge I had faced was learning to accept love without feeling weak for needing it. Time passed, and the house that once echoed with absence filled with small, ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. Shared meals. Quiet mornings. Evenings where silence was comfortable rather than heavy. Love did not arrive as a dramatic confession or sweeping gesture. It grew like a sunrise, slow and inevitable, warming everything it touched. Near the end of this journey, I understood what my father had truly meant. He was not telling me I needed a wife to complete me. He was reminding me that life is meant to be shared, that kindness multiplies when it is given a place to stay. By choosing her, I did not lose my independence. I found my humanity. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you lost, someone you love, or someone you are still hoping to find, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and reaching the hearts that need them most. Before this story ends, I have one special request. Please comment below with a single line about what kindness means to you, or who you would choose to stay with if love knocked quietly at your door. Your words might be the light someone else is searching for.